wickedness, and only 3. And while the angels were there, they were mistreated, or were attempted to be mistreated. That's what we're talking about. There's no faith. And when Lot was telling them, the city's going to be destroyed, let's leave, they laughed at him. So that's what we're talking about. That's what this image is all about. It's the eternal struggle between the people of God and the people of Satan. Those who are in the covenant, those who are out. So that's chapter 12.
Very ignorant question, sorry, but I just joined the class a few weeks ago.
No problem.
What differentiated the Gentiles from the Jews? They were all one people living. Was it a belief? It wasn't racial, was it? It was a belief?
Yes.
Okay.
It was God's covenant relationship he made with Abraham and his descendants. And anyone who was in that covenant relationship was a Jew. It was primarily a dynastic, if you will, a connection. But anyone who wanted to follow the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob could be a part of the covenant. Give me an example of someone who was not a physical descendant of Abraham who later became a Jew in the Old Testament. Rahab. Rahab was the harlot that lived in Jericho. When they went in to conquer the land, she said, wait a minute, I know y'all are going to take the land, but spare me and my family. And Joshua said, fine, you'll be spared. So when the city was destroyed, she was a part of their group. She wasn't a native of that, but she became a part by being a part of the covenant of Israel. Name me another person.
Ruth.
Ruth. The whole book of Ruth is about a Moabitess, a non-Jewish girl who marries a Jewish guy who then dies, and then she decides to go back with her mother-in-law, Naomi, back to Israel. And then she marries Boaz. So she becomes, by marriage and by oath, a Jew. And she later became the grandmother to whom? David.
Through marriage.
Through marriage and through the covenant relationship. Now, I propose that there's a third person. Who is the third person? Delilah. Elizabeth Taylor. I propose that Delilah was also a convert. Through whom? Samson. We read that in Judges chapter 16 and 17. So the point is, anyone could be a Jew if they followed the covenant. That was how you were saved under the Old Testament.
But did she betray Samson? Or I haven't read it.
Yes.
But still she was.
Yes. All right. I would argue that she was saved from the destruction of the Philistines because we read about her and her child in 17. It's a very lengthy thing, but just trust me for that right now. All right? So the point is, that's how you were saved under the Old Testament. It was being in the covenant. How are we saved in the New Testament? By being in the covenant. How do you get into this covenant? Baptism puts you in the covenant. What put you in the covenant under the Old Testament? Circumcision.
Does that occur as within male covenant? Since we're on the trail of covenants and females, not just sexes.
Say again what you're...
Male covenant. Do we know of any male covenant?
Oh, male converts in the Old Testament? Oh, that's a good question. I would have to give that some thought. I can't think of anyone offhand. Not just one that doesn't pop into my mind. Well, that's a good question. Yeah. Yes?
As a woman, you wouldn't be circumcised.
Correct.
So,
She says, as a woman, you couldn't be circumcised. So how could you get into the covenant if by getting into the covenant you had to be circumcised? We went over that when we did the study in the, it was several years ago. But in short, let me put it to you this way. To be in the covenant, the sign is circumcision. Well, if you're a woman, you can't be circumcised, so how can you be in the covenant? The Jewish understanding is this. It is an assent to the covenant that puts you in the covenant. Because you can't be physically done, it is something that is spiritually done for a woman. So she becomes, if you will, naturally a part of the covenant without having anything physically done to her. For males, it's different. That's the short answer. Which is why all Ruth had to do was say, your God is my God, Naomi. I will follow you wherever you go. That was enough. All Rahab had to do was say, I want to join your bunch. She was in. Same thing with Delilah. She was, I don't know if I would say that Samson and she were actually married. My guess is that they were, and as a result, she became a part of the covenant that way. It was the pledge to be a part of it. But with males, they had to be physically circumcised to be a part of the covenant, or they weren't, because that was the sign. That's a short answer. It's a deep question, but it's a good one. Robert, then Ralph.
There's a story about maybe you can share where one of the sisters was raped by a guy, and the brothers were really upset about that. They wanted to take vengeance, and but I think somebody said, no, let's see if we can get them into a marriage situation. So they told her, well, you can marry, but you have to be circumcised. And all the tribe had to be circumcised from the person who raped them. Is that ringing a bell?
It kind of rings a bell, but I think you might be blending stories. What it initially sounded like was the rape of Tamar.
Yeah, Tamar.
Okay, that's in Genesis, I want to say 36 through 38.
But in their weakness, after they said they would be circumcised, and they didn't become circumcised, they were weak, and then the brother would put them all.
Yes. This was actually very common during the period of the Judges. One of the, in the beginning, I'm thinking Judges chapter 3 and 4. Well, actually chapter 3, because chapter 4 is about Deborah. When one of the judges, one of the early judges, went into to conquer a Canaanite, one of the things that they did after they killed them was to circumcise them. You go, why? It was something that God commanded. David did something similar, I believe, to a group of Philistines that he conquered. Once he killed them, he circumcised them all. It's just one of those things that God asks you to do. Okay. Yes?
Maybe wasn't Nebuchadnezzar a bit of a convert?
Yes, that's a good one. Yes, he's kind of a flaky convert. He converts, reverts, and then comes back again. Because under the message of Daniel, he believes in the God of Israel. That's a good question. That's a good point. Yes, but then he builds the idol that he wants everyone to worship. And then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego don't, and they throw in the fiery furnace. Then he reconverts again because they're not burned. So he comes and goes and comes and goes. He's kind of a flaky convert, but that would probably be the closest thing I could think of to a male convert in the Old Testament. Would be that's a good point, Nebuchadnezzar. Okay. Did you have your hand up, John? No? Okay. So, back to this idea. Chapter 12, the woman and the dragon, which I would say, in a broader picture, what it symbolizes is those who follow God and those who follow Satan. Because chapter 13 talks about the followers of the dragon, which are the two beasts. There's the first beast, which comes out of the sea, and the second beast, which comes out of the land. The sea beast, in short form, is what? The Antichrist. And the Antichrist comes in two forms. One is any political power. Oh boy, let's try that again. The Antichrist comes in two forms. All right, then let's do it like this. So I have plenty of room. Two forms. One, any political power that sets itself up against God. This would be the little a Antichrist. These are the Caesars. These are Henry VIII. These are Stalin. These are Hitler's. These are Kim Jong-un. It's anyone that sets himself up as a political power against God. That's a little a Antichrist. That's what this beast represents. The second part of this Antichrist is an eschatological figure. What's eschatological mean?
End of time.
It's the end of time, right? Which is the capital A Antichrist, which you can read about in your catechism 676 through 679, I believe. It's the only place in the catechism that mentions the Antichrist at all. Okay? As we understand him as this figure at the end of time that will come. Okay? That's the sea beast.
Chip?
Yes?
For the catechism, I have 675 through 678.
Okay, that sounds about right. I will change that. 675 through 78. There you go. The second one is the land, and who does he represent?
False prophet.
That's the false prophet.
Oh, land.
The land. He is the false prophet. Okay? He's the one that supports the beast and gets everyone to worship the first beast. Okay? So who is this? This is any figure that supports or encourages the political powers and the worship thereof. I would say the closest historical analogy to this person would be Simon Magus. As recorded in church history, Simon Magus, otherwise known as Simon the Magician, who's mentioned in Acts chapter 8, was initially a convert under Philip, who was preaching in Samaria. He converted him, but he later reverted when he tried to buy the power of God from the apostles John and Peter. And Peter asked him to repent, but he didn't. And as a result, what we find in church history is that this magician who worked in occultic arts later founded a Gnostic religion, an anti-Christian religion, and was sort of the right-hand man to Nero. And according to one apocryphal account, was the one that more or less encouraged the martyrdom of Peter and Paul to Nero. So this is that kind of figure. That would probably be the closest historical connection that you could find as to who this character will be. But he is also an eschatological figure, someone at the end of time who will come and support the first beast. Okay? Just might finish our little survey. Chapters 14 through 16. Why? Actually, 14 and 15, sorry. This is the prelude, which is 14, and the actual last of the 7 judgments, which are the bowl judgments. Remember, I said that there were 3 sets of 7 judgments. The 3 sets of judgments, 3 sets of 7 judgments, which are, and I'll put these in different colors. We have the seals. We have the trumpets. The trumpets take the most bulk of the book. And the last one are the bowls. Okay? Those are the 3 sets of 7 judgments. This is chapter 6. This is chapter 8 through 9. The bowl judgments are chapter 15. Okay? (15 and 16), I'm sorry. 15 and 16. Oops, 15 and 16. So this does cover 14 through 16. Sorry. Okay? The prelude is chapters 14 and 15. What do I mean a prelude? There's always this sort of introduction before the judgments fall. Okay? The bowl judgments are chapters 15 and 16. Then that leads us to where we last left our hero.